Hey, I'm James from the Drafting Studio. Today we're tackling one of the most valuable provisions you can include in a contract, the Termination for Convenience Clause. This is the escape hatch that lets you end a relationship even when no one's done anything wrong. Think of it as the "it's not you, it's me" clause, except legally binding and way more professional than a text message at 2 a.m. Now, before we start, this content is educational only and not legal advice for your specific situation. Watching this video does not create an attorney client privilege or relationship. For personalized guidance, consult an attorney. Now, let's jump in. First, why do you need a termination for convenience clause? Here's the reality: business circumstances change. Maybe your startup pivots and you no longer need that vendor's services. Maybe you're acquired and the acquirer has their own preferred vendors. Maybe you just realize this relationship isn't working out, even though technically no one's breaching the contract. Sometimes things just aren't a good fit. Without a termination for convenience provision, you're stuck. You either have to wait for the contract term to end, which might be years away, or negotiate an exit, which gives the other side all the leverage, or try to manufacture a breach claim, which is both unethical and risky, and honestly, pretty obvious when you try it. A well drafted termination for convenience clause solves this problem. It gives you a clean, predictable exit path. No drama, no legal wrangling, just a clear process for moving on like adults. Here are the essential elements every termination for convenience clause needs. Element number one: clear trigger language. The clause needs to explicitly state that either party can terminate for convenience, or for any reason or no reason. This language is critical. Without it, courts might interpret the clause as requiring some justification. You'd be surprised how many contracts say either party may terminate with notice, but don't clearly establish that no cause is required. That ambiguity can lead to litigation over whether the termination was actually justified. And then everyone's in depositions trying to explain what convenience means, which is ironically very inconvenient. Element 2: notice requirements. How much advance notice is required? This is one of the most negotiated points in any services agreement, and for good reason. The notice period needs to balance flexibility with fairness. Too short, and the other party can't properly transition. Too long, and you're defeating the purpose of having a convenience termination right in the first place. You might as well just serve out the contract term at that point. Some common time frames range from 30 to 90 days, but the right answer really depends on your specific situation. There's a method for determining what's reasonable based on the nature of the services and the investments each party is making. It's not rocket science, but it does require actual thought. Element 3: financial terms. Here's what most people forget: what happens to payments when you terminate mid-project? You need clear language about paying for work already performed. Without this, you'll end up in disputes about what's owed. The vendor will claim they're owed for all work in progress, plus the next 6 months, plus emotional damages and anything else they can think of. The client will claim they don't owe anything since the project is incomplete. And everyone's lawyers will make money, and everyone involved will lose money. The right financial terms protect both parties and prevent these conflicts. But there are several different approaches, and choosing the wrong one can either expose you to excessive costs or leave money on the table. One critical decision: should this be mutual or one way? Most termination for convenience clauses are mutual. Both parties have the right to terminate. But sometimes one party pushes for a one-way right where only they can terminate for convenience. If you're the vendor and a client wants a one-way termination right in their favor, that's a major red flag. It means they can walk away anytime, but you're locked in. You're taking all the risk while they're playing commitment-free dating with your services. On the flip side, if you're the client and the vendor wants this one way in their favor, You're trapped in a relationship you can't exit easily. They can ghost you, but you're stuck sending them money every month like some kind of corporate pen pal program. There are some legitimate scenarios where one-way termination rights actually do make sense, but they're rare. You need to understand when to push back and when an asymmetric right is actually justified. Hint, because we have better lawyers is not a legitimate business justification. Let me show you 3 traps that can completely undermine your termination for convenience clause. All right, trap number 1, minimum payment obligations. Some contracts require you to pay minimum monthly fees regardless of termination. So you can technically terminate, but you're still paying for 6 more months of services that you're not receiving. Doesn't make any sense. That's not really a convenience termination, right? That's a partial buyout disguised as flexibility. It's like canceling your gym membership but still paying for it, except you knew about it up front, which somehow makes it even worse. You need to understand how these minimum commitments interact with the termination right. Sometimes they're reasonable. Sometimes they're just creative billing. Trap number 2, survival provisions gone wrong. Most contracts have survival clauses that keep certain obligations alive after termination. That's normal for things like confidentiality and indemnification. Those generally should stick around. But I've seen some contracts where the survival clause essentially continues the entire agreement. You've terminated, but most of your obligations keep running indefinitely. The termination is meaningless. It's like breaking up but still having to attend Sunday dinners with their family. Trap number 3, transition requirements. Some contracts require extensive transition assistance after termination, sometimes for months, sometimes at reduced rates, or even for free. If you're the terminating party and you're required to provide 90 days of transition support at 50% of normal rates, you're effectively working for half pay for 3 months. That changes the economics of your termination right dramatically. Freedom isn't free, apparently, it's half off. So here's what a properly drafted termination for convenience clause requires. First, explicit any reason or no reason language that prevents ambiguity. Second, a reasonable notice period that you've actively negotiated based on the specifics of your deal, not just whatever the other side's template said. Third, clear financial terms that specify exactly what gets paid upon termination for work performed, for transition assistance, for wind down costs, but no surprises. Fourth, a clean understanding of what survives termination and what doesn't. Spoiler, not everything should. And fifth, protection against hidden traps like minimum payment obligations or excessive transition requirements. Getting all 5 of these right requires understanding both the legal standards and the business realities of your specific situation. Termination for convenience clauses, they give you flexibility and protection, but only if they are drafted correctly. Miss one element and you might find out you're not as free to exit as you thought, which is a terrible surprise to have 6 months into a relationship that you desperately want to leave. In my complete contract drafting course, I'm going to walk you through the exact templates I've developed over 12 years of working with startups, show you how to negotiate each element, and give you the decision frameworks for mutual versus one-way termination rights. But before we dive into the full course, I recommend starting with my free 20-minute non-disclosure agreement mini class. It's a perfect introduction to how I teach contract review and negotiation, and you'll get my complete NDA review checklist and learn the exact framework for spotting issues in any confidentiality agreement. Grab that free training at the link below. Otherwise, subscribe for more practical contract drafting tips and check out the course link in the description if you want to master this. I'm James from the Drafting Studio, and remember, never sign anything that you don't understand.